am Jean Archer from Richmond, Virginia, and I became familiar with this area as a very young child, about 7, 8 years old. My parents bought a cottage across the river below Burhan's Wharf, below Urbana, between Urbana and Deltaville. And so I grew up there from, say, age 8, 7 or 8, until the day I was married, 20 years old. So it was a wonderful, wonderful growing up time. And, oh, there's so much to remember. I'll start with the cottage. It was really a cabin. It was two little bedrooms, one long living room, and a long front screen porch, no electricity, and no running water. Of course, this was quite wonderful as a child, because at home we had all of these wonderful things, but down here we didn't, so it was a different life entirely. And we had an outhouse, and my mother loved antiques. She, everything in the cabin or the cottage was pine, old pine furniture, and she had ruffles and gingham and this and that and we just loved it. And even the outhouse had a shelf with a shaving stand and a ruffle on the shelf, and it was a two-seater too. So anyway, we had swings and hammocks out in the front. We were in a big grove of pine trees, and there were 4 cottages in this grove of pine trees, and I guess from the front door to the edge of, we were up on a cliff, was a good maybe half a city block. And Daddy had cut, there were 2 stumps out there, and he put a big plank on top of the stumps and painted it white. That was our seat at the edge of the cliff. And we would sit there, I would sit there as a little girl and watch the river traffic. And in those days, there was so much river traffic. It was wonderful. And we were right across the river, diagonally from White Stone and Irvington, at that point in the river. Beautiful view. And so and to my left, looking at the river, was Burhan's Wharf. And that was about maybe 2 city blocks up the beach. And so I had a good chance to see the steamers come in, because they were coming in closer at that point to get to the end of the wharf. And but it was a long wharf. It was a cannery, a tomato cannery there. And of course it was bringing passengers in and letting them off and taking on the cans of tomatoes and so forth. But I knew it was coming for a long time before it got there, because of the whistle, the horn, it just, you could hear it as soon as it went way downriver. So, but I sat there and watched those steamers come up twice a week, I guess. No, maybe more, because they'd come up twice and then they'd have to come back down. So it was a sight to see. I don't necessarily remember the paddle wheels, but I'm sure they had the paddle wheels. Not all of them did, but that was exciting to hear them come and to watch them. And also we had a showboat that came up. One time that came to Urbana and docked, and I did go one night with the family. Daddy took us all to the showboat. So that was fun. And getting back to this cabin on the river, the husbands would go into town to work on Monday morning and leave the wives and all the children. We had about 7 or 8 children between the 4 cottages. So we had to have some means of transportation to get up to the post office at Locust Hill to get the mail. And also there was a last chance service station that sold food and meat and was a place to go and have a good time. And so all the fathers got together and bought a jalopy. And I mean, it was a jalopy. No, I can't remember what year it was. Must have been 1930 or something. Big old thing. And they built a bench in the back behind the front seat, so all the 8 children could get in the back and the mothers could get up front. But anyway, that got us into Urbana or into Deltaville or up to the post office, wherever we wanted to go. And we pretty much spent the summers down there. And it was so different because, as I say, no electricity. We had kerosene lamps, and we had a well that we would walk to and get the buckets of water and bring them back to the cottage, but that was fun. As children, we just loved it. We didn't really. That was the river. That was made it so much different, more different from living in the city.